Hello, this is Rich Wilson. I'll be going over for this midterm assignment SHARP, which stands for Sexual Harassment and Rape Prevention training, and then what we get annually. So this would be an annual unit refresher training course that I would be actually teaching and instructing for the unit that I'm assigned with, and it is Army-wide, and we will go into it. The terminal learning objectives for this particular training is for that the soldiers are able to demonstrate behavior consistent with the Army sexual harassment and assault response and prevention program. The conditions are that as commanders, managers, soldiers, and civilians confronted with real-life scenarios involving potential and actual sexual harassment and sexual assault. And the standards that have to be met is that upon completion of the lesson, commanders, managers, soldiers, and civilians will be able to demonstrate behavior consistent with the Army SHARP program to eliminate sexual harassment and sexual assault from the Army with 100% accuracy. This training is also very relevant to industrial organizational psychology and any type of civilian organization that is related to equal opportunity and any type of sexual harassment, no tolerance policies. So what is the difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault? As you can see, sexual harassment involves verbal, nonverbal, and physical behaviors, while sexual assault involves sexual contact characterized by use of force, keyword being contact. But harassment in general has a more of a generalized understanding of verbal, nonverbal, and physical behaviors. Harassment includes but is not limited to any offensive conduct such as slurs, jokes, or other verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct that has a purpose or effect of reasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, offensive, or hostile environment. Workplace harassment based on race, religion, color, sex, national origin, age, and any of the above are also impermissible basis is not acceptable in either the military or civilian ranks. Sexual harassment is a form of sexual discrimination, and it includes sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature when submission to or rejection of is made a term of condition of a person's job, pay, or career, which also could be known as quid pro quo, this for that. I do this for you as long as you do this for me, that kind of thing. Submission to or rejection of is used as a basis for career or employment decisions. If you do this for me, I'll make sure you get promoted, that kind of deal as an example. And conduct has a purpose or effect of reasonably interfering with an individual work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. And that can be just as simple as threatening somebody in their career. Sexual assault is intentional sexual conduct by use of force, physical threat, or abuse of authority when the victim did not and cannot consent. There's been a lot of a controversy before this SHARP program has been coming out that if this victim cannot consent, it's their fault. It was more of a victim being blamed rather than the person that actually caused or did the assault in itself. So now it's more focused on the fact that we're there to help the victim in any way possible, and more on the victim's side. Consent will not be deemed or construed to mean the failure by the victim to offer physical resistance, and consent is not given when a person uses force, threat of force, or coercion when the victim is either asleep or unconscious. And the AR 600-20, paragraph 8-4 gives that reference. What is the impact? How does sexual harassment and sexual assault affect soldiers and civilians in their units and communities? It undermines the strength of our Army, and it fundamentally goes against the warrior ethos, the Army Civilian Corps creed, and Army values. As you see, it lists down in a visual aid aspect of learning, other than just writing it down in paragraph format, is the individual, unit, and community, and shows the effects of sexual harassment and assault. To the individual, they will and might be and possibly will be feeling isolated, depressed, degraded in some sort of way, having a difficulty of trust, excessive absenteeism from work, or life in general, maybe their loss of career, and PTSD. Looking out to the bigger picture, the unit in itself could potentially have a loss of unit cohesion, the inability to accomplish a mission or the goals set for that particular mission, decreased readiness in terms of ensuring that everybody's ready to do their particular job and effectively, and as well as loss of personnel. Losing people within an organization is not good, especially in a negative light. Going out into the actual community in itself, it shows that there's a loss of safety. Everybody will not feel safe from that particular incident. A lot of instability, higher rates of violent crime, and overall a degradation of the community. Bottom line, sexual harassment and sexual assault endanger the lives of individuals and threaten the Army's mission. If we know that sexual harassment and sexual assault are wrong, why do these behaviors continue? The answer is because we as a society allow it to happen. As leaders, why is it important for us to stop sexual harassment and sexual assault? Answer: we all have a responsibility to take action to change our culture, to eliminate an enemy that lies within our ranks. Quoted by CS Chairman Command Sergeant Major of the Army, General Casey, at the Sharp Summit. And it is true that society allows it to happen because we sometimes turn a cheek away from any type of negativity, or doesn't want to be associated with particular events or incidents. When it all is said and done, you are responsible as any other that has witnessed it. Because we are all leaders, as leaders, there's no such thing as a passive bystander. Each of us is either enabling sexual harassment or sexual assault, or standing up to stop it. Why prevention? As a society, the Army does not tolerate crime or mistreatment of its soldiers and civilians, and the Army standards of conduct apply equally to all soldiers. Prevention attacks the issue at the earliest point, makes life safer on and off post, aligns and reinforces the Army values, keeps focus on the mission, enhances unit camaraderie and rapport, and maintains goodwill. Now, going back previously, in terms of before the SHARP program was developed, there was a transition into the SHARP program, both by two particular entities, one being SAPR, which is a Sexual Assault and Prevention and Response Team, and POSH, which is based off the prevention and response aspect of it, from the military side as well as the civilian side. And you can see from these two both graphs we can see here that we can see these pie charts. We can see that there is more of more categories based in civilian POSH than the actual military, and so they combined all those particular essential importance of it and added it into SAPR, and then created which is now called SHARP. To defeat sexual harassment and sexual assault, it's up to soldiers and civilians to take a stand. Everybody must be treated with dignity and respect. Treat others how you would like to be treated. Recognizing that the Army's SHARP policy apply without regard to anybody's rank, age, gender, or sexual orientation, and that everybody's personal lives are their own, and it's a personal and private matter. Take ownership for limiting the enemy within our ranks. Intervene to prevent sexual harassment and sexual assault at all times, and you encourage anybody to report incidents if they see it or they and they make the Army the DoD leader and blueprint for the nation. Approximately 1/3 of all reported sexual assaults from the Army are preceded by sexual harassment. Foundations of sexual assault. we can see from the bottom up, sexual innuendo. It's basically how it's developed, and it's pretty crazy and pretty difficult to understand, but at the same time, it's a reality. Um, from a sexual innuendo to a sexual harassment, a form of discrimination that contains sexual overtones, up to a sexual assault where it's intentional, forced, non-consensual sexual contact, all the way up to what potentially could be death. And everybody needs to be able to attack this issue at the lowest level before it escalates further. Going back to the Army changing the approach into that new SHARP policy, we have about various different categories from goals, focus, the target, the primary responsibility, sexual harassment, sexual assault, the approach, and the key message. The old approach was to eliminate crime, to risk avoidance, the potential victim. The primary responsibility would be the victim. Two separate issues. The approach would be to avoid becoming the target, and the key message is basically to protect yourself and not really care about anybody else but yourself. The new approach now, which is the goal, is to cultural change, that I am strong. It's more motivating and more resilient. The focus is more focused on prevention, stopping it before it ever even escalates even further. The target is the potential offender. The primary responsibility is the bystander and not the victim. Sexual harassment, sexual assault is two related issues. The approach is to intervene to stop potential sexual harassment and sexual assault, and instead of just saying you need to protect yourself, everybody is responsible. There's a check on learning. What is harassment? Harassment includes but is not limited to any offensive conduct that could potentially affect and interfere with the individual's work performance or personal life. The only difference between sexual harassment and sexual harassment is that sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. And this ends my presentation for this particular assignment.